What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Sublimely Elegant here as always, and welcome back to Creating a Level Live. This is Belligerent Cats, is the title of the map. I do want to start off by apologizing for the amount of time that it's taken for me to make a second episode of this. I will be completely honest, it is a daunting task, actually, and a scary one at that, to make a level live on recording. There's a lot more to it than I would have thought personally, and I should have known better, honestly, but I'm under a lot of pressure, I feel, when I'm doing this kind of content, especially considering you come to my channel for the tutorials. You would probably hope for fucking sure that I can make a level, and it makes me, pretty on edge to actually want to try and make sure that I, do this as the best I can so that I can prove to you guys that I am in fact capable of such a task. So, it has been a little while since I've put anything back up on this, but it's back up here, and hopefully this goes well. I've been thinking about some possible avenues for directions I could take for the second part of the level, and I'm going to go with a little counter type deal. I actually think I might be doing this wrong. I have to think about, well, that whole sector is just wrecked now. I will be speeding this up at some point, but for the time being, let's just chat, you and me. Sound good? Okay, so we're gonna do a wall here. There's gonna be a door here. Anywhere that there's going to be items that includes monsters drops, it is it's not important, but it's a really good thing if you manage to actually make it available or accessible for the player, because if you don't, then it's going to count towards the 100% for items in the level not working out. If, they could have grabbed some shotgun ammo that, is laying in an area that's just completely inaccessible due to the way that due to the way that it was positioned in the world, i.e. not being able to reach it. So it's typically a good idea that if there's something of a monster that can drop something, you more than often want to keep it so that that area is actually accessible. One way that you can circumvent this, of course, is just use monsters that don't have drops. Imps and Pinkies are a good one. Well, I guess Pinkies not so much. Imps, because they have... Oh, these need to be separate sectors? No, that would actually work fine. Pinkies wouldn't work because it has to be a distance if you can't reach them. Otherwise they can't attack you. So Imps would be the main one. Cacodemons also probably, but they just fly around anyways and don't give two shits, so they wouldn't care too much. Anyways, paste, damn it. I'm going with a little counter kind of design. I should probably actually lower this a lot more to where the player is presented with the things of the people, and they're, kind of segregated, and this is actually a good thing to probably do for the initial room. Paste, what the fuck? Where was that pasting? Down there? Yeah, I thought so. Okay. Minor difficulties. It's actually a fairly decent idea to, make it so that there's a barrier between the player and the monsters from the get-go, assuming this is a true map 01, of course, so that the player can fight these monsters but not be in too huge a danger. They'll be able to get away still if shit hits the fan. So, using this type of style can actually be fairly useful for the first area of a level. So I figured that this is how I would go ahead and do it. Now I'm just going to go ahead and build for a while and hope that it turns out well. So enjoy. Okay, so it's been a good while here, and here is what I've managed to come up with thus far. As we had talked about before, I do still have the initial little area that segregates the player from his or her first counter with enemies, which is awesome. I also used some fairly interesting texture work here that I think actually turned out pretty nice. The door, of course, still manages to fit the theme that I had created on the other side, so there's no loss of the theme there. I've also managed to make it look fairly good at for texturing, despite it being sudden changes. It's clearly a different area, so it doesn't quite sit weird, and it's close enough to the other that initially a player more than likely wouldn't even notice, really. As you probably saw, I did another one of the same style secrets I did over here using the exact same texture, but this time hidden by the fact that there's actually multiple walls in here that exhibit the same texture, so it almost just seems as though it is a theme of the room. However, if the player was capable of finding that one, they do have the they do have better odds of deciding, well, hey, that's the same texture of the last one, might as well give it a go. Worst case scenario, they don't get it, and you know, that's the point of a secret. They're not always going to find it. To the side here, I've managed to create a little another window way, but it's actually upstairs, which gives a great deal of depth to the feel of the rooms, actually, and gives it a sense of being an actual structure rather than just you know, Wolfenstein style boxed rooms. The stairs overlapping out, overflowing rather, also adds a nice touch to it, and the texture change to the different type of floor also meshes well. It is awful brown in these rooms still. The floor of this area combats that slightly, but the next area will might be outside. I'm not entirely sure on that part yet. Like you guys have already clearly seen, it has taken me quite a while to even get around to making the second portion of the map, and I mean, this is just, you know, 2-3 rooms. Like, it's not big. If somebody played this and that was it, they would most likely hate it unless it was just really fucking well done. And it's definitely not perfect, so it needs to be longer and you know, continue to show quality, and so far I think it's doing pretty good. The lighting that fades out towards the other side is not strange in any way because of the lighting only being on the one side, and makes sense. So I think it fades out nicely, and the texture transition actually works fairly well with having the metal texture on the wall here. They're similar enough that it doesn't boggle the mind. It's not just like this and then marble out of nowhere, because ugh, why, who, never, please don't. So they're similar enough that the change is warranted well enough, and I think that having the metal actually there due to the variance in height actually makes it mesh much nicer. So we'll be able to have some monsters up here that are attacking the player from their flank, as well as the time that the player is busy dealing with these guys. So we're giving them a segregation between monsters when they first initially start, but we're also giving them multiple angles that they need to be paying attention to. This is a good way to keep the player on their toes, while at the same time saying, you just started the level, you have a pistol, here's a bone, good luck, you know? So I'm throwing them a bone, I'm keeping them segregated from the monsters for the most part. Monsters will more than likely want to wander down the stairs at some point, but by giving them multiple areas of attack, I'm actually, you know, still pushing the player and keeping them on their toes and making sure that their wits are about them. This room up here gives beautiful, beautiful transition to future areas because there's actually enough room where I could have potentially 1, 2, 3 doors up here, almost creating a sort of hub area. It's not entirely guaranteed that I'm going to go about making this room in that fashion, and I do need to fix this sector work here, which will be fairly easy, but making doors on a wall like this is nigh on impossible, so I'm going to have to tweak that. I had not anticipated the actual height that this would be at, and ended up being far shorter than I had envisioned, but I think it actually turned out better in doing so. Not really much else to say outside of that. It's an empty room with stuff going on and, you know, an idea for what to put and where. It's not entirely, you know, it's not amazing. It doesn't have the detail level that the initial room here shows off with computer parts, dynamic lighting. Well, to such a degree at least. There is a little bit of dynamic lighting here. But it doesn't have, you know, just the little nooks and crannies and the, you know, variance and texture work that gives something a lot more detail. It is fairly bland out here, but I feel like the change in height is drastic enough of a, you know, of a different perception of the room that it does kind of circumvent it in a way. I'm not saying it's perfect, but do keep in mind, eventually we will be having a door along one, if not more, of these walls, and a door is a good 128 size, and that's going to be taking up quite a lot of what looks currently like empty wall. And in fact, I can actually just slap a door up to show you guys that I'm not completely stupid, and that I know that, you know, it's not going to look completely bland up here. And then of course the side of the door would have the blue lights just as the rest of them, which is even more detail. Little things like that go a long way. Just even having this shittily aligned door actually makes the room come together a lot nicer, because it's not a bland wall. And it's a very good thing indeed. I think this is probably good for now. I'm not necessarily going to jump into the next area from here. I do think this needs a little bit of retouching, and of course, like I said before, I do need to redo some of these sectors, but I think that the concept is nice. And this is, again, one of the reasons that has taken me so long to actually getting around to even attempting to do something like this, is I could have sat here for half an hour, made all of this, went, nah, and had to undo it all, and then, you know, it's a waste of time on my and your part. So I need to do a lot of forward thinking when I create these videos, so I do apologize. It will be another good deal of time before we can get to the next episode of our live creation of a level. But I hope that it's coming along nice enough and fast enough that it will still maintain interest, and it's actually looking fairly decent. For what we have, at least. It's not terrible. Could be better. I think the initial room is probably one of the nicest initial rooms that I've made, but these areas are still fairly bland, but they fit the theme well enough that I think we can go ahead and call it. Thank you very much for watching. If you guys have any suggestions for what I could possibly do for the next areas, do feel free to leave comments in the section below, as that will help me greatly in creating these concepts.